A plan! A plan he has mercilessly destroyed!
Your plan wouldn't have worked, Elijah. When Klaus got into my head, he said your plan would fail. So he had to enact one of his own.
And what might that be?
He has to get her to link to him.
My brother wishes to bind himself to our enemy. Should be virtually indestructible.
He said I had to convince you that everything he had to do alone. You had the wrong ingredients to kill Dahlia, and he has to buy time before he finds the right ones.
How?
With your strength, I will never need to sleep for a century again.
Well, perhaps one more nap.
As epic as this scene was, how did Klaus manage to manipulate Dahlia to get to this exact point? And why is this the most hyped intellectual feat done in the entire verse? And finally, why did he feel the need to actually do this in the first place? We'll start first with the reasoning. To find out why Klaus actually did this, we have to travel all the way back to season 2, episode 17. This is where Klaus was trying to get Rebekah to take back control over Eva Sinclair's body. To do this, Klaus needs the spell from Esther for Freya to use, and Esther told Freya the spell, but Freya counters saying that she needs to anchor her power using a family member or she might lose control of her power and they all might get stuck in Eva Sinclair's mind. However, this will mean that Freya would also be able to see into the mind of whoever is involved, meaning that she will be able to see into the mind of Klaus, and Esther noticed and said this.
Channel your power while I breach Eva's mind.
And there it is. The price. If she channels you, she will have access to your mind. Past and present. She will know everything about you.
This is a problem, especially due to the fact that Klaus already doesn't trust her, seeing as Freya has already tried to kill her before by helping Finn locate her. And also, Esther made a very good point about Freya being with Dahlia for 1,000 years and she could just sell them all out to Dahlia to save herself. Klaus obviously saw this as a problem and was conflicted in letting Freya into his mind, but Elijah made Freya do it to him instead. But a problem happened and Klaus had to step in and let Freya use him to save Elijah and Rebekah. Afterwards, they had a conversation about Freya having to enter his mind to complete the spell. Klaus still obviously doesn't trust her because that's typically Klaus, and believes that Freya could just as easily trade in his secrets to Dahlia to save herself, which Freya adamantly denies would actually happen, and Klaus is the only person that actually doesn't trust her, and the only reason why she believes that is because of Klaus's crippling paranoia, and she believes that that's the only reason and not actually anything Freya has actually done. Then Freya left to go speak with Esther.
Late for that. But it turns out you were right about one thing. Maybe Klaus shouldn't have let me glimpse inside his mind.
I warned him to be wary of you, of what you might see.
Oh, I saw quite a bit. But I only learned one thing. Klaus and I can never be allies. I now see that he will never trust me. So he leaves me no choice. I will have to turn the family against him. One by one, and now I know how to do it.
She was likely referring to the pre-existing problems with the relationship shared by Klaus and his family and also Hayley. Freya didn't hate Klaus yet until after Klaus killed Michael in front of her face. Obviously, Freya wasn't with Klaus and the rest of his siblings, so Freya doesn't really understand the disdain that all of them actually have for Michael. She loves Michael, and in the following episode, an angered Freya told Rebekah this.
You and Elijah have a choice. From now on, it's either Klaus or me.
So that's problem number one in terms of Klaus not trusting his allies, which is that Freya might be two-faced and he can't be sure if she might sacrifice hope to save herself. And he knows Freya knows that. And there's a big possibility Freya might try to convince his siblings to jump ship to her side, which hinders his plan to actually stop Dahlia, as he believes everyone should follow him and he should be the primary strategist alone, as in nobody else should actually be in charge of any strategy when it comes to protecting Hope. Now we've gone through Freya, we are going to go through problem number 2, the werewolves, specifically Jackson. Now in terms of Jackson, his problem is that he became unimportantly important to his pack. He is the alpha, but Klaus behaves more like the alpha than he does. Even before Jackson joined the alliance, you will instantly notice the problem between the two working together.
The heads of the wolf leaders who refused to relinquish Finn's moonlight rings.
You brought me a bag of werewolf heads.
Why, I'd hoped you'd see it as an early wedding present. Besides, I can't have witch sympathizers in my army.
The wolves are not now, nor ever will be your army.
After Jackson noticed this and started to notice that other people in the pack actually also will probably notice this, he started acting like the alpha and completely go against Klaus's plans by coming up with his own genius idea, which is just to run away from Dahlia. This plan is so intellectually superior that not even Klaus, the guy who has never lost a war in his 1,000 years of life, didn't even come up with this. By the way, if you didn't notice, I'm being very sarcastic. Klaus literally tried to do that twice and he failed both times, even with a cloaking spell the second time. And the witches that found them are much more weaker than Dahlia is. And Dahlia is the person that they're actually up against. And then Jackson decided to try and share this genius idea with Hayley, who is the third, final, and the biggest problem with Klaus not trusting his allies. But for Jackson, he's the second problem because he didn't want Klaus to push him around, even though he's the more battle-tested leader of the team in terms of strategy. But now we'll flash sideways to Hayley, and although yes, Hayley's problem with Klaus does not start with Jackson, but it intensified with Jackson. And this is because Jackson's problem was wanting to be actually seen as the alpha by actually taking the lead, even though he isn't anywhere near qualified enough for that role. Therefore, Hayley feels the need to actually back Jackson's nonsensical plan, even though it makes little to no sense. And she backs it because Jackson has been giving Hayley subtle hints that she's more loyal to the Mikaelsons than she is to the pack. And it becomes blatant that Hayley is thinking only about her pack than the best strategy possible to actually keep Hope alive, because the plan is just so bad and it makes literally no sense. Like, listen to the argument Hayley had with Klaus beforehand, and bear in mind this happened in season 2 episode 19, immediately after Dahlia easily wiped out a chunk of her pack.
Dahlia sent Josephine this morning. No way. We'd be sitting ducks just like we will be here as soon as that spell breaks. Which is why we have to go. Jackson is out getting supplies, and then we're taking the wolves and we're headed to the bayou.
The swamp. So my child can be protected by the very wolves Dahlia so easily defeated. Absolutely not.
You know, I am so over taking advice from you, Klaus. All it has done so far is put Hope in danger. From now on, I'm gonna do what I want to do. We're leaving.
You're not going anywhere unless I tell you to.
I am not your prisoner, Klaus.
Both of you, please. We're playing into Dahlia's hand.
Not doing as I say plays into her hands. While you two have been kowtowing to Freya and devising ways to flee with your tail between your legs, I've been forging a new path. I know what Freya was planning, and I know how to kill Dahlia.
Like, this is so dumb, and she makes it seem like it's a genius idea and Klaus is only stopping it out of paranoia and wanting to keep them prisoner. Like, Hayley has seen Klaus actually allow Hope to be given away and move far away from him to keep her safe. In fact, he's actually done that twice. The reason why he doesn't agree on this plan is that it will get her killed and Hope taken very easily. Even if Dahlia can't sense Hope's magic, she can easily just do a locator spell on Hope, or Hayley, or Jackson. Dahlia isn't a newbie witch. You know Dahlia is not only incredibly powerful, but also incredibly intelligent. Dahlia will find Hope no matter what. And her plan was just to run away with the wolves, as in the same wolves that Dahlia wiped out without even trying. Yes, I understand what she's trying to get at, because at the compound, they are basically sitting ducks and Dahlia is shown to be powerful enough to take on multiple originals. But there's still a reason why Dahlia still hasn't stormed the compound yet. That's because it's much difficult to take Hope, especially when Freya is also there, Hayley herself, who is a hybrid, is also there, a pack of evolved werewolves is also there, potentially multiple vampires from Marcel's army is also there, and 2 other originals are also there. Hayley and Jackson's plan, however, removes everyone I just mentioned except herself and the evolved werewolves. So in short, her plan could be summarized by her pointing out the fact that they are at a disadvantage, and she assumes the best solution is to put themselves in an even bigger disadvantage. Like, why would you not only remove the most powerful members on your team that also simultaneously acts as a deterrent to Dahlia, but more importantly, remove the smartest members on your team, especially when you're going up against someone that is both smart and powerful. And the situation gets even worse because eventually she was planning to even get rid of all of the evolved werewolves when she gets to her destination, and she just planned to stay with just Jackson and the baby. Like, what if Dahlia strikes then? Does she not understand that she isn't as immortal as the originals? Like, I don't believe Dahlia has enough power to kill an original, but even if she can, she was struggling to do so, as she has had the opportunity to show them that she can easily kill them, but she failed to do so. Hayley, however, is as vulnerable as a human to Dahlia. Dahlia could just rip her heart from her chest just as easily as she did to Aiden. So yeah, Hayley is the third problem to this situation, as her loyalty to the werewolves is clouding her judgment, which leads us to the death of Aiden. Now this is the exact moment Klaus knew that he has to continue his plan on his own, because the moment Klaus was accused, quite literally everyone in the room already judged him guilty before he even said a word. Even though it serves Klaus no purpose in killing Aiden, knowing it would obviously alienate Hayley against him. Pretty much every single ally he has is against him through manipulation from the 3 reasons I mentioned. Meaning that Klaus would have immediately thought that everyone else but him is compromised to the actual plan to save Hope. And Klaus would have also immediately known that it was Dahlia that actually killed Aiden, and she was doing it to split the family. Also earlier in that episode, Klaus had an argument with Elijah confirming everything I just said.
Dangerous for you, brother. You cannot do this alone.
And whom should I trust to protect Hope? Our newfound sister with duplicitous motives of her own, Hayley, whose allegiance to her husband grows stronger by the day. Or how about Jackson, the self-declared king of the wolves?
You need only trust me.
I would love to, Elijah. Now more than ever, I need my brother, my closest ally, my blood. You've not been the same since Mother got inside your head. Your judgment is not what it was. You are not what you were. The Elijah I know would never have clung so desperately to the word of a duplicitous stranger, telling him what he wants to hear.
Now, what exactly was the plan Klaus was referring to? It's highly likely Klaus already knew that Freya's blood isn't one of the ingredients to kill Dahlia, and assumed it's actually Esther's blood, but wants confirmation first. He would have probably tried to contact or speak to Dahlia in order to talk to her and see for himself her view of Esther and Freya. And finally, he would also need to actually buy time for them to actually get someone to resurrect Esther. This confirmation comes after Elijah daggers Klaus in the final scene of the episode, and Dahlia made her first and biggest mistake. A mistake that not only led to Klaus temporarily getting the better of her by knocking her unconscious, but also led to her outright death. This mistake I'm referring to was letting Klaus into her mind and telling him the story about herself. If you notice, she barely spoke about Freya, but mostly talked about everything Esther did to her, and unknowingly implied that she is the way she is because Esther betrayed her. This is all the ammunition Klaus actually needs to play a perfect double agent. Klaus's Machiavellian plan started after getting the confirmation needed, and he had to do it because he was already in too deep in his double agent plan, and he can't just switch sides back to his family. And like I said earlier on, he needs to buy time to resurrect Esther before Dahlia notices the plan and stops it. So he has to play along and play into him being his family's main enemy by doing the most despicable things possible. Like wiping out Marcel's army, again, compelling Gia to burn herself to death in front of Elijah, biting Cammy, forcing Rebekah to unalive herself right in front of Marcel, and finally forcing Hayley and her entire pack to get placed under the Crescent Curse. On the surface, this is all an act of revenge on his family, but deep down there's a plan to all of his actions. All of it except for the stuff with Elijah, because to be honest, he did not have to do that. That was mostly personal. He probably would have killed Gia anyways, but he didn't have to kill her in front of Elijah's face. But however, he begged Cammy to relay a message to her that she would tell Elijah after she gets the tunis bit out of his chest, which is that they had the wrong ingredients and they need to resurrect Esther, and he needs to buy time for them to actually do that by sacrificing himself. The reason he had Rebekah kill her Eva Sinclair body was because Rebekah is practically useless in that form, and Klaus needs all of them at their best against Dahlia, although it screws over Rebekah, who wants to keep that body to resurrect Cole. Finally, with Hayley, that was quite literally the only way to keep her alive. If Klaus didn't place the curse on her, Dahlia would have killed her and Jackson in the process of just kidnapping Hope. Dahlia has said she will kill Hayley, not only to Klaus but to Hayley personally.
The only question that you need ask is, would you deny me, knowing that it would mean your death?
You're not taking her.
And of course, most of my troubles with Freya stemmed from the fact that I came for her so late in life. You know, she had such a strong memory of the family that I took her from, but Hope is still young. She won't cling to the memory of you or cry for you in her sleep. You can take comfort in the fact that for her, it will be as if you never existed.
The final act of the plan was to get Dahlia to link herself to Klaus, and once she did that, Klaus daggers himself, knocking him unconscious. And as him and Dahlia were linked, Dahlia shares the same fate. Now, although Dahlia wasn't incapacitated for too long, it was still enough time for Elijah to trick the Vina into resurrecting Esther, and Klaus took her blood to create a weapon. After Dahlia captured Freya and took her to the abandoned train yard, Klaus brought Esther for the sole purpose of mental warfare, knowing it would get Dahlia to hesitate, and it worked. As Dahlia quite quickly had them fighting for their lives, and the only thing that stopped her from killing them was Esther begging for their lives, Because although Esther is a terrible and selfish person, she still loves her children and wouldn't want them to die for her mistake, which ultimately led to Esther chaining Dahlia and Klaus killing both of them simultaneously. But anyways, if you like this video, then why not watch another? This is my most recent video in which I explore just how powerful Freya was throughout the entirety of the originals.